Alright fellas, here we're back at Pokemon Masters, and today we're going to be looking at Anniversary N and Reshiram and seeing how well they have aged, also how good they'll be relative to the release of the high score event. So, this character definitely has a lot of good perks about them for the high score event, most notably the fact that they don't really rely on Sun too much, especially in terms of multipliers. They have a pecking order devastation as well as the innate multiplier of power play. And there's nothing fire related about them, or sun related rather. So they don't need sun for their, maximum potential or anything. Obviously it does help being a fire type, but really if you need to run a budget build, N will be one of the characters that can help you with that. He also has a big gimmick with extended range, meaning his Noble Roar and Blue Flare will be extended across all enemies with no split damage. So that means Noble Roar's dropping attack and special attack will become, hitting all enemies, which is very, very good. He's also very self-sufficient with his special attack and crit buffs, as well as being able to buff his accuracy and apply gauge acceleration. So he can be, good for gauge support if you need it. Also having a Unova Master passive means he'll, apply damage reduction as well as buff allies' normal moves? Yeah, he'll buff allies' moves as well as apply damage reduction, which will be very, very useful. Piercing blows hitting through enemies like damage reduction passive skills, also very, very nice as well. And having Mind Games 9 every time he uses, every time he uses Blue Flare, he'll be able to debuff special defense. So he's got a lot of stats he can debuff. They're AoE, his nuke is not reliant upon Sun, his DPS is not reliant on Sun. So, I think that's all pretty good stuff, right? Not to mention the stuff he's got in his group with Adrenaline 1 and Piercing Gaze as well as having stuff like Might Afflictor 4, as well as Pep Rally. He can be very, very good in the high score event. So yeah, let's go ahead, hop into some battles, and see how well this guy has aged. So here's the first setup against Poison Weak Marshall. It is the most basic setup you can probably get for Anniversary N, outside of a Neo Champion Leaf setup, because obviously she is probably his best partner now, with the Leer and the debuffs and sunsetting damage, just pretty much everything, right? So yeah, you got that right. But other than that, I mean, you got Classic Lisa here for all of her debuffs. You got Signature Morty for Sun and crit support, gauge management, bulk, healing, whatever. It's one of the most basic setups you can get, right? Obviously, you can get pretty creative with this if you tried, but you don't really need to. In order for good stuff to happen, you don't really need to get too creative in, what you do and everything like that, right? So, this is where we make full abuse of N's nuking abilities, of course. We go ahead, attack that Serena over there, do some really solid damage. Well, obviously, we KO it, right? I mean, that's kind of just a given at this point. And we just use Classic Lisa over there to debuff attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and speed, mostly for the attack and special attack, though. The special defense is also very, very nice, of course, as well, just as usual. Classic Lisa also applying part of the Unova Master passive, so we get a small buff there. It's nothing crazy, but still, it's a buff. So a buff is always going to be nice, right? And then we have to set up the Sun here again with Morty. Do I reset it up here? I believe so. Yeah, I do. And the Blue Flare is not doing a crazy amount of damage, but they're doing enough, right? About 2,600 damage without the Sun being up. Put the Sun back up and it should hit for a decent bit harder, right? It should hit over 3,000 damage, right? Especially being a move with no multipliers. 4,000 damage is pretty solid, I would say. Now we got -6 on the attack, special defense, and defense. Or not defense anymore, but we have maxed out power play, so this is the pretty much full nuke you can get with N, other than using a support EX or something, which you could, of course, do. 34,000 damage, very, very good nuke, of course. Not bad to get either, obviously. You can get a lot of good partners and run them in the place of Classic Elisa if you want to, and you can still get very, very good results out of N's nuke to this day. Only hindrance to him is his low special attack, which back then was pretty much just a mitigator for the fact that he would be really stupidly strong otherwise, right? Like if they gave him 400 special attack, he'd probably be really, really strong. Though, granted, they did release units like Champion Iris, so I don't know why they didn't make N, like, super cracked. But still, he was very, very strong on release, and is still very strong now, right? Obviously, there's better options, but still. That's a pretty good nuke, right? Especially under all of his optimal conditions, with the attack, special attack debuff, special defense, as well as the Sun being up and whatnot. So yeah, that was the battle versus Poison Weak Marshall. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, here we are versus Electric Weak Caitlyn, and we've got ourselves the triple Unova Master Passive full setup, as well as just triple Unova, period. And this is pretty much a semi-free-to-play setup. Obviously, Lisa isn't completely free, but free enough, right? All you need is one copy of Elisa and Zebstrika. and you can make some good use here. We're able to use Elisa to buff and crit, so we don't have to worry about doing that ourselves. We go ahead and use his Noble Roars for the AoE drop. We use Ghetsis' Noble Roars as well to get some faster debuffs in as well. This setup is mostly just trying to ramp as many debuffs as possible, and using Elisa here to debuff speed, evasion, all that stuff in order to just get as many multipliers in for power play as we possibly can. So, yeah, power play. So it works out to pretty good effect here, I would say, and we also use her to buff special defense because, of course, Caitlyn being a especially offensive powerhouse, you'll afford to have to get some special defense buffs alongside the special attack debuffs. 12,000 damage, by the way, with no stun on that side. That's pretty good damage, right? Especially for having pretty much all free-to-play partners. We go ahead and use Ghetsis' trainer move just so we can have enough gauge to queue up the blue flares and whatnot. I think we're able to queue up some Glaciates later on in the fight, but not really so much now. We do kind of have to worry about our gauges right now, but just going for the blue flares and getting in some good damage is all that's really important for now. We got a lot of good speed debuffs, which is obviously going to be very good for Ghetsis later on because he does have Hunter's Instinct, so we can get some good power in with the Glaciates, right? So we do land the nuke here, which is not fully activated because she did buff her special attacks with Devastation, isn't fully activated, but it does very, very good damage nonetheless, especially after Ghetsis does his move. 21,000 damage, by the way, there. Uses the Glaciate with Ghetsis and just ends up KOing, right? I go ahead and just go for the Dire Hit Plus because I needed to use something for gauge purposes, but then we go ahead, cure ourselves a Glaciate, and KO there. Could have used Blue Flare, I just went for Glaciate because why not? There you go. Full free-to-play setup, off-type 2,500 point master mode. Would this work in 3,000 points? Probably not. Maybe if I got like some gauge refresh stuff, I could have done it, but I don't know. 3,000 points is going to be very tough. Not very, well, probably very, I don't know. 3,000 points is going to be tough for off-type showcases in the future. I may stick to 2,500 points for a little while just to adapt a little bit and see how it goes. But anyway, yeah, that was pretty much the full free-to-play setup for Anniversary N with his nuke and damage and whatnot, right? Pretty good, compatibility with Ghetsis, of course. They were both not necessarily made for each other, but the, Noble Roars and the AoE moves and their compatibility, it's still pretty good. Anyway, yeah, let's move on to the next battle. Alright, here we are versus Iceweek Shuntal. This is just going to be showing how N can affect other characters and how well they work. Mostly, in this case, Ghetsis, because they are pretty much not perfect partners, but in terms of the Pokemon that they have and the amount of synergy that they share, it's pretty freaky how many things that they can do that work well with each other. So this is mostly using N's utility grid with his Mind Afflictor and the other one, where we also have the special defense debuffs with the Blue Flare, as well as having Pep Rally on the Blue Flare, meaning we can get some good gauge management because this is probably a pretty slow team. Plus you have 2 4-gauge move users, right? So you got to consider that. We go ahead and go for Elisa Support EX because we do get a lot of sync ramping from her trainer move and whatnot, so we don't really have to worry too much about turn denial or anything here because we do have 2 AoE move users, which is obviously good. We go ahead and go for Glaciate. Sadly, they do stop with the queuing up for my Blue Flares, so they had to buff their special defense there, which was annoying. But oh well, the speed buffs are still helpful, right? But that's about the best you can say, I guess. So we go ahead and go for our Glaciates and our Noble Roars, rather, to fully debuff the enemy's stats, though, and they do end up having them queued back, so it's fine. -6 attack, -4 special attack, and -2 speed. That's good enough, right? We don't really need anything else. We can still get a lot of good damage out of Ghetsis' nuke here, because Ghetsis does have a really solid nuke for a free-to-play character, I would say. And then we're able to finish them off here with the Blue Flare from N, despite it not critting and also having the standard damage reduction. So, don't have to worry too much about that. It's fine. This is also, of course, a triple Unova setup with the Master Passive and whatnot. So, even better help for Ghetsis on that end, right? N and Ghetsis do work very, very well together, and is able to apply the debuffs that Ghetsis wants, as well as special defense debuffs, as well as gauge acceleration for gauge management, and stuff like Pep Rally on the Blue Flare, so you got that stuff as well, right? So it all works pretty well together, and creates a nice concoction for a comfortable team setup, especially a comfortable win as well. So, and it gets us not one of the best pairs in the game, and definitely not like the best pairing for N in general, but they do work well enough together to create some pretty useful pretty useful and easy clears, right? So yeah, that's the battle versus Electric Weak Caitlyn. Not Electric Weak Caitlyn. Ice Weak Shuntal. Let's move on to the next one. Alright, here we are with Grass Weak Grimsley. This is the all-tech bulk showcase? I don't know what you want to call it. But basically we use Signature Leaf here for a tank, and we are able to use N for debuffing stats, as well as powering up Rosa's nuke, because she does want special attack debuffs for her nuke, right? Gauge is a little bit iffy to start out with here, but we can probably end up queuing up a few blue flares towards the end of the battle, so we can get some good gauge there and not really have to worry too much. So that's not bad, right? But mostly for now, we're just going for the Noble Roars in order to debuff enemy stats as much as we possibly can, so they don't hit us too hard, right? And we go ahead and go for the potions as well, so we're able to handle ourselves very, very well, just because they can't hit us they can't do any damage to us, right? -6 special attack, -2 attack. Pretty sure Leaf can end up buffing her defensive stats with the mega healing there. I think. I could be wrong. I don't remember what it does. But anyway, yeah. Not too bad, right? Not too bad. And of course the gauge acceleration is good to help with our gauge management, so there you go. And it's pretty much just powering up Rosa's nuke. You could technically really swap out Rosa with someone else and use Signature Leaf as your main tank, but you don't really have to. And that's pretty much kind of the highlight here, is that you don't really need to do that if you don't want to. So, not really too worried about doing it. And the enemies are what? Yeah, -4 special defense. It's pretty good special defense debuffing, I'm going to be honest. And then we get to go for an actual blue flare here. Get some special defense debuffs in, as well as a little bit of gauge help. So that's good. They do end up flinching Leaf, which isn't too big of a problem, but it's whatever. And Leaf obviously was very good for this, not only to tank, but because she's got her healing, the sync countdown with her trainer move, as well as special defense debuffing. So you're not only helping out the power play with the defense and special defense, but you're also, of course, powering up Rosa's nuke, because it does one special defense in order to be at its full effect. There you go, 43,000 damage. Very, very nice. Probably could have handled this off-type as well, but you may have had to change up a couple things. I'm not too sure. But either way, I just know that it was a very easy win nonetheless. Triple Tex works out very fine. And obviously it was Rosa and N together, so a little bit of a boost to the Master Passive there. Not fully maxed out like it has been for the last two battles, but still, pretty good degree of strength, so not too bad overall. Powering up Rosa's nuke, lowering enemy offenses, applying gauge acceleration, special defense debuff, all of that. Rosa and N definitely have good synergy for sure. Anniversary and Special Custom Rosa. Pretty good synergy, realistically speaking. So yeah. That was the battle with them, as well as, just all three techs in general. Let's move on to the final battle, where it's pretty much a double Unova champion setup. Did you expect Alder? You may have expected Alder, but no, we got Champion Iris, or as DNA likes to humbly refer to her as Alt Iris. There was definitely a lot easier ways to do this, but I kind of wanted to just get a good look at both N and Iris together. I could have definitely handled this a lot differently and made it work a lot better, but I just opted not to because I didn't find it to be necessary, so I'm not too worried about it. We go for the gauge acceleration there with N. We use Iris to debuff stats, and we pretty much just use Iris as our main source of damage, and we use N's blue flares as well for some side damage, as well as just applying more debuffs for Iris's power loving, most specifically, because she doesn't really need it for her nuke, but more so the power loving, getting that activated. I just find that to be better, so that's what I did. We do have to kind of rely on +2 crit here, which is a little bit annoying, but it's not too bad overall. Not really a big issue, and we land the crit anyway, I think. I actually don't know. We may not have. I have no idea, actually. Either way, it's fine. It's not a big issue. We go ahead, buff our crit here, and attack with the trainer move from Iris, and we lower the sync countdown so we don't have to worry about that. And we just start going for the Dragon Rushes, right? Definitely some better ways to handle this battle, of course, but I just opted to handle it this way. Defense Crush 2 on Iris is a great lucky skill. So, hey, very, very nice. Got the -4 on the defense, -4 in both offenses. Pretty sure we're at max on the power play and power loving for Iris here, so that's not too bad. Nearly KOs, but thankfully because of N with his blue flare, we're able to KO nonetheless. So, hey, that's what I did. I could have definitely just made it so we had standard damage reduction and changed the parameters up, but I wanted to do some decent enough damage with N as well, just in case I needed it, and also to highlight they're both working together. Though, of course, there's obviously a better way to defeat the stage with these 3 specific characters. And Acerola was just there for the immediate crit buffs and attack buffs, as well as being a decent enough tank because of her evasion and whatnot, and as well as being able to buff speed. So she worked out relatively well for it. And anyway, yeah, there it is. You don't really need to see the grids, it's fine. It's the same grid for N as the last battle, I believe. Yeah, as the last battle. And Iris is 1 out of 5. And Acerola, it's not really too important. You just have to pick up the, I think, group slapdash. That's about all that's important. Anyway, yeah, that was the showcase for Anniversary N and Reshiram. Let me know what you think about them down in the comments below. We got the Fire High Score event coming up, so be sure to handle that. Anniversary N is definitely going to be a great character for it. But yeah, I'll see you all later. I hope you all enjoyed.